Top government officials in South Africa cite the California blackouts from 2020 due to infrastructure damage, diminished output and scorching temperatures, among others, as proof that the country is not unique in its energy crisis.
For example, in California, there's no coal-fired power plants allowed.
But Ignacio Fernandez argues for having a better public-private mix in energy generation and transmission, where the market can play a role in finding solutions.
The most significant, rather than the sources of energy differences, is the electricity markets, how they run both in California and in South Africa. In California is absolutely mostly private, right? So we differentiate three types of power generations. One is independent owned utilities, right? Completely private. The other ones are municipal or public-owned utilities, which are in the hands of municipalities, right? However, even though they're public, they are run as private companies, right? So that facilitates the work of the government on setting their policies by sending market signals.
Fernandez explains that it's difficult to draw direct comparisons because in California they've largely transitioned away from coal, while are now seeking to transition away from natural gas, which accounts for about 40% of the state's energy supply. In Chile, coal accounts for around 35% of the country's energy mix, which along with oil and gas accounts for around 74% of total primary energy. Given that the energy crisis in South Africa goes back as far as 2007, Fernandez believes solutions should have been found a decade ago.
I did a quick analysis of the growth of the installed capacity in South Africa, and I found something last night that was kind of shocking. And I'm looking at a graph where I can see, and the data is from the International Energy Agency and the Department of Energy in the US, that the installed capacity proportionally in the last 5 years in South Africa has grown faster than the consumption. So one would ask, why is this happening, even though the increase in the capacity is increasing? So I think, and from all the articles that I read, very little, or I would dare to say none, has addressed the issue of energy efficiency and demand response.
And with a big international push to transition away from fossil fuels like coal, which drives dangerous carbon levels in the Earth's atmosphere, he believes South Africa might consider flipping its energy pyramid, which remains heavily reliant on coal.
We historically look at energy production on a base load provided by fossil fuels and using renewables to peak, basically to go on top of that base load. Why don't we flip it, right? So power as much as possible, as much as we can, from solar and wind, which, by the way, once it's constructed, the operation maintenance is close to zero. So once it's been paid for, the electricity is extremely cheap. And on those valleys, or that production that is needed to peak, then you can power with coal-fired power plants or natural gas.
They want the lights on. I mean, this is affecting small businesses. We asked him how officials could better manage public expectations given the peaked levels of anger and frustration in South Africa.
Unfortunately, the answer for that is final results, right? You cannot come up with a number of if you work very hard and you do all these contracts and in the end up that you have to do load shedding, excuses are not good reasons, right? So our approach in Chile was like, you have to keep the lights on no matter what.
No easy solutions and no easy victories, and an economic imperative that must find solutions both in the short and longer term. Sherwin, Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.